After we heard Grumpy Man walk away, we opened the window and called, "Dan!" Maybe he could climb up to our room. It didn't look too promising, though, because it had been snowing and the surfaces were slippery. We called again, "Dan!" But there was no answer. We just had to hope that he'd managed to sleep in the train station. Both Pat and I needed to go to the bathroom to brush our teeth and to go to the toilet. How were we going to do that if the door was locked? Even though there might be other people sleeping there, we didn't care. We just had to bang on the door so that our jailer would let us out. He did. And he waited until we'd done what we needed in the bathroom and locked us back in the room. It was ridiculous. We were prisoners in a guest house. The next morning, the door had been opened, and we quickly got ready and made our way down the stairs. Miss Walter was standing at the bottom, looking up at us with a very grave expression on her face and shaking her finger at us. Oh dear, what did you girls do?" We explained as best we could, and instead of chiding us even more, she was very concerned for Dan's welfare. "Where did the poor boy sleep?" she said. We checked all around the Bahnhof, but couldn't see him anywhere. "Oh, the poor boy, the poor boy!" Miss Walter was so worried about Dan and the fact that he would have been cold. Finally, we had to assume that he was now on his way to pastures new, and we never saw him again. While we tucked into a hearty breakfast, Miss Walter asked us what our plans were. When we told her we intended to apply for work at the Army Hospital in Bad Cannstatt, she was absolutely appalled. "It's a terrible place, terrible. All those soldiers fighting, very dangerous." We couldn't imagine why she would say such a thing, especially because it was a hospital. Except we already knew Miss Walter to be a very religious person. She regularly quoted passages to us from the Bible, so we assumed she was a pacifist. Of course, we all know that religion and peace don't necessarily go hand in hand. As time went on and she and I became friends, I understood her fearful attitude towards the military. But that's a story for another time. Despite her resistance, she took us by tram to the hospital. She shuddered when she saw the soldier at the guard gate in army fatigues carrying a rifle. "I will wait here for you," Miss Walter informed us. Knowing how distressed she seemed, we told her it wasn't necessary, but she was insistent. We showed our passports to the skinny, freckle-faced young soldier on the gate, who didn't seem capable of killing a fly, and asked if he would direct us to the personnel office. "New blood," he said. Yes, we might be giving blood," I answered. He gave me a puzzled look, and Pat giggled. "He didn't mean it that way, Marie." As we walked toward a 2-story white brick building, we passed men and women in army uniforms, white lab coats and civilian dress coming and going very busily. It really was a hive of activity, and Pat and I were excited that we were hopefully going to be a part of this new scenario. Pat had her interview first while I sat on a chair outside the personnel office in a long corridor, nervously waiting. Then she emerged with a smile on her face. "I'm in," said Pat. "What do you do, ma'am?" the rather robust personnel lady in a tight-fitting army uniform asked me. "I'm a secretary," I replied. "Great. They need a secretary in the lab to run the drug abuse program. And that was pretty much it. I was in too. We told the waiting Miss Walter our happy news, which didn't please her at all. Unfortunately, we weren't able to start working at the 5th General for another few days because we needed to register with the German authorities and gain a work permit. Of course, this meant we didn't have accommodation. Not wanting to take advantage of Miss Walter's kindness any further, Pat suggested we visit the Canadian consul in Stuttgart and maybe her parents could transfer money to her there. We explained this to Miss Walter, and of course she insisted on taking us on the tram all the way to the Canadian consul building. Before waving us goodbye and wishing us good luck, she handed me a piece of paper with her telephone number and address in case we needed help in the future. I think she was sure we wouldn't last at that terrible place. Pat explained our situation to the honorary consulate, a man in his early 40s with a warm smile, adding that she'd worked for a Canadian diplomat in Zurich, and she gave him his name. She told him that we were applying for work permits but wouldn't be able to start at the hospital for a few days. We didn't have money for accommodation, the youth hostel was closed, and so on. She asked if the consulate would be able to contact her parents so that they could send money. "No, I can't do that," he said. We both looked at him with our mouths wide open, and Pat's big blue eyes got bigger and bigger. "What?" she said. "No, you can both come and stay with me and my family instead," he declared. "No need to worry your parents." We couldn't believe he would do such a thing. But here we were again, being offered kindness from yet another stranger. I'm sorry to say that I've actually forgotten his name, but I certainly have never forgotten his kind gesture and the generosity of his wife, who was willing to take us in. Within a few days, we had our work permits and appeared at the 5th General Hospital with paperwork intact. We were first shown our accommodation, which was in the Bachelor Officers' Quarters, the BOQ, a 4-story building across from the hospital. The officers were on the 1st and 2nd floors, and the civilians on the 3rd and 4th. Pat and I were on the 4th floor, and each had our very own sparsely furnished room next to one another and with a shared bathroom. Luxury! There was a communal kitchen where we later got to meet other civilians from as far away as Australia and New Zealand. As a nurse, Pat was assigned to one of the wards, while I was taken to an office in the lab on the 2nd floor, which I would share with Sergeant Friedlander. He was funny without knowing it, and was the image of the TV character Sergeant Bilko. My other office mate was a female captain, Cartwright, who was not too fond of men. She was very intimidating with a bulldog attitude and was Sergeant Friedlander's nemesis. I soon found out that the 5th General was a very untraditional American hospital, and the lab was definitely a reflection of the relaxed attitude of the military workers, who seemed to be merely passing time as they completed their tours of duty. If you've seen the series or film MASH, then you get the idea. Blood bank, pathology, and urinalysis were some of the departments just a few doors down from my office, and rock music played constantly. It was a really fun atmosphere. The first day on the job, a chubby GI in fatigues wearing John Lennon glasses arrived in the office carrying a large black plastic bag slung over his shoulder, like a misplaced Santa Claus. "Are you the drug lady, ma'am?" He looked at me with a hopeful expression. I think I nodded, and then he dropped the bag on my desk. As he did so, small plastic bottles of various honey shades of urine rolled out. Time to get to work, Sergeant Friedlander informed me, and that was the start of a whole new chapter in my life. In the next episode, you'll hear more about my unusual job and my experiences of racism. Thanks for listening.